traveling, and you should travel for a long time. Of course, the best thing is to keep notes.
Yes.
And you maybe in the beginning you make a real nice diary, really well done, and so. But more and more, you sleep in a tent, and you want to do your diary. In the daytime you haven't got time. You got to travel. In the night you lie and you try to write a diary, and we fall asleep. The diary is under your body, and and you use paper, any paper you can find. You don't always have a nice A4 book that you could do afterwards, maybe, but at least you do make your notes.
Yeah.
So there's an American guy who wants to be a biographer, and he came and take pictures of all of my diaries.
Yes.
And he's American, and he speaks German, but he cannot,
He cannot read your.
Even when I have, especially the first 10 or 15 years, this is 1966, for example, that he, some of them reasonably good, but some of them is impossible, especially when you write. I already have redone some when it was in pencil. When it's written in pencil, you can't read it, and he couldn't read it, he couldn't. Even myself, I make short, in the old days, I just make, shorthand.
Yeah.
And that means you make a...
Stenography.
Well, you make a keyword, and you think, well, if I see this keyword, I know the story.
Okay.
But 50 years later, 40 years, you don't know. So even myself, I can't get, and I feel so sorry for him. And then I've decided that some of the really worst ones, I pick out to redo them. And then when I go very slowly about that day, the memory comes back. It does not come back when you just fly over it and you see a word, you don't know, you go to the next page. But when you do that, so I've started with some of the worst ones. This is not even the worst one.
Okay.
And I've started to write them, rewrite them, and I can live through the time. And then it's in a way that you can really, it's in a proper way done, And so this is all sort of from bits and pieces of diaries, whatever. Some of them are smaller than this is A5, and then some of them I have with A6, which is a notebook with a spiral, pages fall out. And so it's 16,000 pages there of diaries.
16,000.
Most of them are not to be rewritten, because later I had much nicer one, and it's more like long sentences, but in the beginning it was short sentences. So I said, that's. But I made it diary day by day.
So rewriting
rewriting the story.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Some of the story was incredibly interesting because I was in the jungle as a gold hunting for gold,
Yeah.
And we went hunting all the time with the Indians. We had 14 Indians that were washing, because you don't wash because you don't get alluvial gold. It was in the rivers of Ecuador. So all of this, look, for example, this was our camp. We built our camp,
So
and
make it
now
growing.
when I see this, this is the kitchen. Later they employed me as a kitchen man, so I had to cook for them.
Yeah.
And we went hunting. We shot deer, pheasants, all kinds of things on the way. And I went with the Indians, and so because alone in the forest you get lost. So that's what happens. And this is the camp I spent 1 month. And every day went into the forest. In the other side, it was the Auca territory, which was an Indian tribe that had no contact with civilization at the time, and everybody was afraid to
get killed.
And it was known that their area the rivers were full of gold. It was a side of a legend, and they would have even believed that the Incas got their gold in their area, And so, but everybody that had ever ventured into the Auca territory, they found them dead. They were not visible there was a saying in Quito, and it was in Ecuador, the whole thing.
Yeah.
There was a saying in Quito, they said, if you see an Auca, you are dead.
Okay.
Because nobody ever saw them.
Yeah.
Because they just, and they were so accustomed to the forest and things, and they didn't have bow and arrow, they only spears.
They know the forest.
And it's very interesting. And the camp, they knew, they had very strict borders. And they knew that the Villano River, that was the name of the Villano
Yeah.
River, on the other side was Auca territory. Sometimes they would venture there because all heavily armed. We had war weapons. We had M1s with us, and all kinds of revolver. Everyone had a revolver. And they didn't like the bang of shooting, so
okay.
you wouldn't see them.
Yeah.
So but one time our camp was apparently surrounded. I would have never known because you never, as a foreigner, you are not accustomed to things in the jungle. But the Indians there, they were tame Indians that the missionaries had already converted them, so they knew the forest. I mean, they built everything. They built with material of the forest. We didn't have nail, hammers, or anything. Everything by hand from the forest. And they cleared this whole area. It was about 100 by 100 meters, which they cleared the forest, It was a fantastic experience. It was in the German embassy where I had a presentation, and I was invited by some guy who had the concessions. We had to have the concessions there. Yeah. And I got stuck there because everybody was pissed off because they didn't get the food sometimes. Sometimes airplane flew over. We didn't have contact. It wasn't like a time when you have a smartphone. So we were worrying sometimes. No salt, no sugar, these things. But meat we had plenty because we went every day with the Indians and we hunted. It was the time when we one day they shot a puma there and the puma had just attacked a deer. That's why he was busy with and so the puma is also like people. The Indians are, they never miss because bullets, ammunition is very expensive. Yeah. And I was playing around in the beginning. I was shooting, and I missed very frequently. And they looked at me. What's this guy? He doesn't know what he's doing. He had a shotgun, but the shotgun is difficult because you have to put it higher. Yeah, and somewhere way up in the forest, you have a squirrel or something. Well, a squirrel is not worth the bullet. Yeah. Because the Indians wouldn't necessarily kill a squirrel, but monkeys, mainly monkeys was plenty, and we had pigs, a special kind of pigs, and we had all kinds of other.
But do they eat the puma? Or
I
just
wouldn't
take
know. The skin I have here because I got the skin.
Really?
I had to pay something for it because I wasn't the one who did the shooting. If I would have shot it, yes, but I wouldn't have shot it because the puma would have seen me
before. So
but,
you spent there 4 weeks or 5 weeks?
Yeah, but it was always more difficult to get game in the forest because they know always every day we had to walk further, sometimes 10 kilometers away before any animal was visible. Sometimes you think many animals in the forest, not so.
No. They see you, but you don't see them.
You don't see them, yeah. I don't know if you have your own experiences.
I've been to the Selva, yes.
But this is something different what we did. I mean, we also, later in Colombia, we went for a tribe that had no contact with the civilization as well. And it was definitely dangerous. We didn't get a guide, and I wasn't going to go in, but the sweet guy I was with, he said, we're going to discover them. And we lost our way, and we was just lucky to find our way back, And and there was a missionary who tried to make contact with them. He left presents, machetes on their trails and things, but he never made contact with them. Okay. And eventually I heard, and this American who is the course that I rewrite it, he made contact with. The guy, the missionary himself died, but his son he found out about the son, and the son told him the story about they didn't much longer stayed in the forest there. They were with two little children there, and his wife, nice. Alone in the forest,
Crazy.
But this is something you don't do when you are a tourist and you have time and you have flights back and forth. But you take advantage. I mean, you if you take your time. You have suddenly an opportunity arises, and that's what you do then. Yeah. And because the airplane is not waiting for you, man, I didn't care. That's why my journey took 50 years eventually. I mean, basically, I found the way of.
You're a slow traveler.
The way of no, I'm not a traveler. I found the way of life. Yes. That it was unbelievable that I could manage. I was very independent, although I depended, but I had the ability to, people were curious of what I was doing. That's why my bicycle was so colorful, and so they would speak to you, and then you would accuse them. They always have a way of having them laugh all the time.
Yeah.
So they immediately, I mean, I have incredible trust in, especially in America. You know, they would, even I did a bit of hitchhiking there. When I wanted to see somebody, I would come back and we have a weekend, we have a party, and we would go back and we hitchhike there, and somebody would pick you up, and it would take you, this evening, he would take you in, and okay, you can stay the night, and the next day he would say, we gotta go to work, but take a day of rest. So they leave you alone in the house.
Yeah.
They leave. They say, there's the fridge, there's the food, or they
beautiful.
left the key of the car there, because everybody must drive a car in America,
sure.
you know. So well, leave your bicycle alone and take a ride. You know?
That's nice, yeah.
All the time this happened, you know. And every day I was stopped because I got the sign on the bike, you know.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a story about the rewriting of my adventures. You know?
Yeah.
I love this now because I can correct certain unlegible ways of writing it here. You know, so I can correct
Yes.
that somebody else, not
Will not-
everything, but can read it. You know.
Nice work.
And I do it until 2 or 3 in the morning. But if I'm awake, I used to be I used to manage for 4 hours a night. But in the meantime, it's not like that anymore. In the daytime, sometimes I nick.
You power nap.
And then I find somebody says, "What you? But your writing is mucked up, you know, because the pen is on the paper, but my mind is
Somewhere.
is in heaven, somewhere else. And I dream sometimes. You know?
That's good.
And if you have 5 minutes dreaming, you can dream a month in 5 minutes of sleep, because you go into the watch. It's only 5 minutes, but you have a whole time has gone through your brain.
That's nice. Thank you.